Lequita Brooks here. I am your social impact speaker and strategist and host of Social Impact Sundays at 6, where we have massive social impact that leads to income. And today, this is our very very first episode. And we're starting out Social Impact Sundays at 6 with the Social Work Movement docuseries. And let me tell you about this, right? So this docu-series was started because I am a social worker by profession. I have my master's in social work. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And this was the thing about the social work movement. Like I would be in these social work groups and I would get so angry. When I say angry to the umpteenth power, like I would get so angry because I'm in these social work groups and then you have all these different posts by social workers who are talking about being bitter, broke, and burnout. And let me just clear the air first. Let me just let you know up front. I went from social assistance recipient to being a 6-figure social worker that's also a business owner with a consulting firm. So this is no judgment or any of those things, because I totally understand. I've done bankruptcy, foreclosure, all the things, and we'll talk more about that. So as I'm in these social work groups and I'm seeing all of these posts by social workers who are frustrated or who are like, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have went into the profession, or this was the worst decision ever. Or like, I wouldn't tell my child to go into this particular profession. I started the social work movement to just dismantle all of that, because I am on a mission to change the global narrative of the social work profession for social workers to be valued, respected, and well compensated. I've lived it. This is my life in real life. I know tons of other social workers who have really amazing lives. And my desire for the social work movement is that our voices will be so much louder than the voices of the social workers that's bitter, broke, and burnout. So that's why I started the movement, because it's something I'm passionate about. I know the potential and the possibilities of social work. We can do any and everything. We can work in any type of industry. Social work degree programs, they are absolutely amazing. They do what they do. They follow the CSWE curriculum. They teach you about being therapeutic. They talk about being empathic, all those things, right? But they don't talk about the business and practice of social work, like really basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs one-on-one, making sure that you meet your own physiological needs. So yeah, we need our clients to meet their physiological needs, but what about your needs? What about your desires? So just like, we're helping our clients have amazing lives, whether that's communities, individuals, we're changing policies, corporations, starts with you first. So I want you to know that the possibilities are infinite and you can make money and make a difference. And we're bringing, and I'm highlighting a lot of other social workers just like me who love the profession, who have amazing careers, and who've been able to do that. So that's why I started the social work movement this year. So taking it back before pre-social work life, I would say in high school, I went to a college prep school. It prepared me to go to college. But one of the things that I just didn't know that I didn't know, like I had no clue about a career, a major, any of those things. So I'm at the University of Central Florida in like 99, just taking classes and doing all the things. But I had no direction, in my life. I did eventually get a job. Matter of fact, my first job was at the company where my mother worked. Yeah. Yeah, I got my first job because of my mom, because I had no idea about career planning, career mapping. And that's why today, that's something that I do with social work students, social work career mapping, to help them map out what their desired outcome is and then focus in on what are those steps to do today to get there. So with that being said, I'm just winging life. And then, life happened. I had an unplanned pregnancy, my amazing daughter. So in 2005, one of the things I always vowed, and this has been my values my entire, I guess you would say, parenting life, and that's been since 2005, had 2 key values: being a present parent and providing financially. So I would say to you, what are your values? What are those things that are non-negotiables in your world that's going to cause you to stick with it. So because of that, everything I did since becoming a mom was in alignment with being a present parent and providing financially. And it doesn't mean that I'm perfect by no means, but those two key things I needed to have. So when my daughter was born, I taught school for maybe like 3 months. And teaching school was like the worst job ever in life. And then from that, I ventured into entrepreneurship for roughly about 3 years. And then I got to a point in my entrepreneurial journey, and I did like a lot of different entrepreneur things. I was, as you would call it, I was a hustle entrepreneur. I had 10 different hustles, all legal, I might add, but different hustles because I needed to be that present parent and provide financially. So I flipped cars. I had like a dually truck. I did hair shows. I sold hair products. I was a notary. I did loan closings. I think I flipped a few houses. Like I did a variety of things. But then it got to a point where it's like, okay, Lequita, I'm giving myself a pep talk. You are the mom, you're the present parent, you provide financially, you're the car rider mom, the field trip mom, the homeroom mom, the dance mom. You're all the moms. But then there was still something that's missing. So in 2008, a friend of mine, Tia, my bestie, who I thank so much, Tia the Great, she was like, we were talking about, where I'm at in life. And I'm just like, something is missing. Like, I know all of these values, like I'm the present parent, I provide financially, but something was still missing. So she said, hey, Lequita, let's go to this Black Female Development Circle event. And I said, I don't believe in no Black women empowerment. I'm not dealing with that because I didn't have the best experience when I was in a sorority, when I was at undergrad. But she was like, girl, I'll just pay for it. So I said, okay. When I say that was the most life-changing event ever, it completely changed my life because being there, it made me realize the thing that I was missing was I didn't have purpose. So at that point, I had to add to my values that I desire to live a life of purpose and continue to be a present parent and provide financially. So we sat down at my house and I was like, okay, purpose. What does that look like in my world? So we began to talk and I said, okay, I'm going to go get me an MBA just like you, Tia. Why in the world would you get an MBA? I guess you have a point. So we sat down and we talked about who I am as a person. Like I'm really great at researching. I naturally problem solve. So then she was like, well, okay, maybe you need to go into the helping profession. So I explored 3 different degrees at that time. I explored getting a degree in mental health counseling. I explored becoming a social worker, getting my MSW in social work, and then also becoming a psychologist. Well, psychology was out of the question because I knew to be a psychologist, I needed to get a doctorate degree pretty much. And I remember I'm a mom. My daughter was about 3 years old at that time. And it was like, yeah, I don't have time capacity to dedicate 4 years to school. So that was a no-go for me. Then mental health counseling, I was like, yeah, I could go into private practice, but I don't know if I actually want to deal with mental health the rest of my life. So it was like, well, maybe mental health will be the backup plan if I can't get into an MSW degree program. But then getting the master's of social work was like, oh my gosh, with social work, there's so much freedom, so much flexibility, especially once you get your LCSW, which is becoming a licensed clinical social worker. I was like, oh my goodness. So if I ever get bored, I can always work with children or teenagers or work for the government or work for the federal government and do like policy, or I could work for state governments, or I could work for city, or I could be a business owner. Like it could go any way that I desired. And there was no limitation on, well, you have to stay in this lane because the skills with the social work are so transferable. So 2008 decided, okay, going to have purpose, be a present parent, provide financially, applied for FSU. And yeah, I got accepted into FSU. And it was a really great experience. And the cool thing about going to FSU was like, and during that time, I was an entrepreneur. So I got to a point, I think I did my first semester in Jacksonville, Florida at their part-time program. And then I relocated to Tallahassee, Florida. So my daughter and I moved from Jacksonville to Tallahassee, which is about 3 hours away. And I went to school full time and she went to school full time. And one of the things I would say to individuals that's in school or, exploring just something new, like get clear about, what you want. Cause like I told you earlier, I had no idea when I was, the 17-year-old, honestly, that went off to college, like what I wanted to do with my life. But as an adult learner, I then quickly realized, okay, this is what I desire, and this is the path. So with going into social work, I was like, okay, I'm going to get my LCSW. I also need to graduate and I need to earn $40,000. So pretty much everything I did while I was in school in the social work degree program at Florida State University was in alignment with that. So I would say if you have a goal or a dream or aspiration, make sure you're taking the necessary steps that's in alignment. So there are tons of amazing social workers who choose to go into child welfare. Well, for me, child welfare wasn't an option because along with having purpose, being a present parent, providing financially, and part of providing financially, it meant I needed to earn at least 40,000. And that's in 2010 for context. Now, that's not a whole lot of money, but in my world and for my expenses, 40,000 was going to allow me to pay my bills and also take a road trip to maybe Orlando, which is about 2 hours from Jacksonville. So I did everything possible. So with social work students that I work with, we talk about social work career mapping. So it's like, hey, maybe you should get an internship that's in alignment with your career goals. So like I mentioned, I needed, I needed to make $40,000. So working in child welfare is an amazing career, but for me, it wasn't in alignment with my life because it wasn't going to allow me to make 40,000. And it wasn't going to allow me to be a present parent. Like I'm a whole mom that's single, living in a totally different city. And by this time, I'm actually in Augusta because I relocated from Tallahassee to Augusta, which is about 5 hours to Augusta, Georgia, which is about 5 hours away for an internship because I knew I needed to work in healthcare as a social worker and I needed to make over $40,000 because once again, I need to be a present parent and provide financially. And it happened. Graduated in 2010 from Florida State University. And I landed my first job as a hospice social worker in 2011. And I made 48,000. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I graduated. I had my master social work license in Georgia, did that for a few months. And then my daughter got to a point where she was like, hey, mom, like, I really want to move back to Jacksonville. And it was like, okay. So I ended up getting a job at a hospice agency in Jacksonville. I did take a pay cut for that because I guess in that moment I knew that being home was more important than the money. So I still made over my 40,000 because that's the bare minimum. So make sure if you're going into social work or any other career field, make sure that you get a job that's going to pay your basic bills because in my mind, working poor doesn't make sense. Those are my own philosophies because it's the thing, right? When you're working poor, you make too much money to get help from the government, but you don't make enough money to get ahead. And you're going to always live paycheck to paycheck. And you're going to always be behind on some bills. So I say, make sure you get a job if you're, in the job market that's going to pay your basic bills. So hospice did that for me. First job, I made 48,000. Second job, took a pay cut, made 45,000. And once I relocated to Jacksonville, within 3 months, a job at the VA came up. So, and I mentioned to you all earlier, I actually did an internship at the VA for my second internship. Worked at the VA for 6.5 years. And at that point in my life, it was like, okay, I can breathe. When I was in school as a student, all I could think about was just going to school, being a present parent, and just paying our basic bills. And then once I got my first job in hospice, it was like, okay, now I can think about working towards getting my clinical license. So now I'm at the VA, working towards getting my clinical license, great benefits, great pay. I worked as a healthcare for homeless veterans outreach social worker. So I had a lot of flexibility in my position when it came to time. So it allowed me to still be the present parent and provide financially because then I want to say I made about 52,000. when I first started at the VA job in 2012. But in that season in my life, after a few years, and then I attained my LCSW, I started desiring more. And I went ahead and started another business. So then I could actually have that more. Because at the end of the day, I've always been an entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur when my daughter was young. So I knew one day I was going to venture back into entrepreneurship again. I didn't day, but I knew it was going to happen one day. And at that point at the VA, because I was full, and I would say on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I probably was close to, I wouldn't say I was at self-actualization yet, but I was close to it. I was in a good spot in my life. I could pay my bills. I had extra money to invest. I had more money to invest in philanthropic things. I had time to go volunteer at a middle school for students on career planning, because that's something I'm passionate about. I actually wrote a book, Poetry, Therapy, and Practice. And I ran some free groups at a particular organization for moms that's single. So depending on where you're at in your life is going to determine what capacity you have to give to others. Yes, we all desire to give all the time. But as I mentioned to you, when I was a student, I didn't have the capacity to give. And even when I worked at hospice, I was just getting back on my feet. That was my first job after doing a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, going through foreclosure. I was also rebuilding my credit. So doing all those things, I had enough capacity to be a mom, work full time. But once I was at the VA at about 3 years, so maybe around like 2015, 2016, it was like, okay, I've bought another house. I've rebuilt my credit. My daughters did dance. I'm doing all the things. So now I had more. I was at overflow. I guess you could say my cup runneth over at that point, so I could give more. And then, life happens. I'm still working at the VA. I'm going through a never-ending co-parenting custody case that felt like it lasted forever. And my daughter needed more support. So, as I mentioned at the very beginning, my values are being a present parent and providing financially. And in that moment, my daughter needed more support. So I actually quit my job in February 2019 and transitioned from federal employee to pretty much a full-time business owner. And I homeschooled my daughter. And I prioritized my daughter at that point in time. And I started doing employee assistance programs. And I'm not saying that you need to just jump out the airplane like I did with just a parachute and no other preparation. But in that moment, my priority was my daughter. So I made that leap. I will give this caveat though. If you're thinking about leaving your job, you need to either A, have already replaced your income, so then you can still support yourself financially. B, have someone who supports you financially so you don't have to worry about that. Or C, in my situation, I actually had savings. So I did quit my job at the VA to transition without a plan. I knew I was a licensed clinical social worker, so I could do therapy. I knew I could work for employee assistance programs as a contractor, and I had 1 year's worth of savings. So I knew, okay, Lequita, you have like 1 year to like figure this thing out. Like you have 1 year of savings to be able to make this thing happen. And lo and behold, I did. And I'm just going to say to you, if you're watching this, I would say at every single pivotal moment when I took huge risk on myself and I bet it on myself, it turned out. Making a decision in 2008 to say, you know what, I want to go to school full time and I'm going to pursue a life of purpose while being a present parent and providing financially. It was no way for me to maintain having a timeshare, 2 homes, multiple cars, and go to school full time. So no, I made the decision to do the Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and everything worked out. And now I'm at another pivotal moment in 2009 where it was like, hey, I'm about to risk it all and just go all in. And lo and behold, things worked out once again. A few months after I quit my job at the VA, a brand new grant came out doing the same job. I get overwhelmed even when I think about this, overjoyed rather, when I think about this, like doing the same exact job I did when I worked at the VA. But with this grant, it was a 2-year, pretty much almost $250,000 grant where I would be able to offer life skills and life coaching to veterans. And I would have been able to make more money and still be in business for myself and be able to support my daughter. So I partnered with a nonprofit and we applied for that grant with the Department of Veterans Affairs, the same organization where I just left, and was awarded that grant. So we had that grant pretty much for the past 4 years. It started in 2019. It was a 2-year grant, and then we renewed for another 2 years. So pretty much almost a $500,000 grant where I still got a chance to support veterans with, like I said, life skills, life coaching, support them with thriving, not just surviving, but having an amazing life. Because we all desire to have an amazing quality of life, do the things that we enjoy doing, have some fun, and live. Like, who wants to just work? Like, I believe in playing and working. So that's me betting on myself once again. So made that transition from federal employee to business owner in 2019. And another big risk today. I decided, okay, so this VA grant has been absolutely amazing. It's been a blessing for me. I've been able to bless veterans. It's been really rewarding. But one of the things that I've talked about for years and years and years is being able to be a digital nomad, just live this vacation lifestyle where I get to live, work, play, and philanthropy. And I've said multiple times about being in alignment and applying for the VA grant again. It would not have been in alignment. Was it great money? Yes. Was it extremely rewarding? Yes. And I even had multiple people say to me, Lequita, are you sure? Are you sure you're not going to apply for this grant again? But history has already shown me time and time and time again, when I've taken the biggest risks and I've betted on myself, things have always worked out even better than I even imagined. Nobody could have told me that when I decided to go get my master's in social work degree, that I was going to eventually work for the Department of Veterans Affairs, deal with a horrible co-parenting case, and then turn around and get a grant with the VA, doing the same thing I did before and make more money and be able to have more freedom and flexibility doing it. Nobody could have told me that. I didn't see it in my future. So I say to you, when you have those things that are tugging at you and you know that you're called for more, you know that there's something greater for you, lean into it. Take your next step. Like, don't just sit on it because it keeps coming up for a reason. I don't know what you believe in, but I am a spiritual being. So I believe in God and the universe and all the things in Buddha and just all of it. Because I know that there's something so much greater than me that's working on my behalf. When I put my natural out there, the supernatural happens. When I put my ordinary out there, the extraordinary happens. The universe and God and everyone that's working on my behalf, they put that extra on it to bring it to fruition. So I say to you, trust in yourself. Take your next step, whatever that looks like. Get clear on what your vision is. And then from that, write down everything you know that to do. And I don't mean go to Google. No, this is not a Google assignment. This is you take everything that you know, and then you go ahead and you map that thing out. So in this particular situation, when it came to my transition, it's like, hey, is it worked over and over and over again? When I do my part, everything else works itself out. So I decided not to reapply for the VA grant and transition my business to a 100% virtual business. So that's 2023. And now today, the vacation lifestyle where I live, work, play, and philanthropy. And it doesn't mean that I'm not scared. It doesn't mean that I don't have doubt sometimes. I also still believe. It doesn't mean that sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't know how this is going to happen. So I can't necessarily say it's doubt. It's just more so like, I know it's going to happen. I need it to happen like now. But what I do know is that I do my part on making those things come to fruition. And that's why I say to you, whatever that vision is, let's not, and don't get it twisted. In 2008, the 2008 Lequita could not think about a vacation lifestyle. The 2008 Lequita was strictly in survivor mode. I made a decision to risk it all and go back to school full time. I focused on school. In 2010, I graduated. In 2011, I could only focus on, okay, let me get my first job so then I can be a present parent and provide financially. By 2012, okay, boom, got a federal job. Okay, now I can think about what's more. So wherever you're at in your life, embrace that. Embrace that moment. So you might see on the internet people talking about millions. I talk about starting currently I have a 100K months mindset group because that's the headspace I'm in. But it took all those things. Think about it. 2008. It took all those things in between to get me to this point to start a group for 100K months. So we're talking about 100K months is possible. It took me all these years to start the Social Work Career Mapping Academy, where I support social work students with mapping out their career path so they can make money and make a difference post-graduation. It took all of these years for me to even say, you know what, I decided to live a vacation lifestyle because actually was on vacation maybe 3 years ago. And I was out on the beach with a friend of mine and they said, Lequita, as they're walking the beach, they said, well, do you feel like this is what life should be like? And I was like, yeah. I think that being able to get up, walk out of my oceanfront wellness retreat center and walk in the beach, this is what life should be like. And this was a discussion I had at least 3 years ago. But it took me to 2024 to be all in on living that life. So wherever you're at, make the most of your season and what's going to be your next best thing for you. Not for what the gram says, not for what TikTok says, not for what Facebook says. I even think about, I have $1 billion vision right now for my business, the Social Work Incubator, because I was entrusted with this vision a few years ago. Maybe it was early last year, where it encompassed workforce development for social work students, professional development for clinicians, and business development for those entrepreneurs so they can get unstuck and get clarity and move forward. But all of this, remember, this has been a journey. So when you see people like me or you see other people online, this was not some overnight sensation. This has been a process. Not a bad process, but it's a process. It's been ebbs and flows. It's been good. It's been indifferent. It's been life lessons along the way. And it still is. I'm taking another huge risk, another huge leap. I'm even selling my home. Selling my home to be a minimalist and have a few luggages and travel the world at different places. I don't know anyone else who does that personally. I mean, I've been in some groups and I know of people who've done it, but not in the way that I envision it. So I say to you, wherever you're at, embrace where you're planted. Make the best of that season. And like I said to you, at every single season, my priorities was different. My mindset was different. My vision was different because I only had capacity for so much depending on where I'm at. And now, when I started school, my daughter was 3. Now she's 18, running her own business, doing lashes. And I'm still there to be the mom and the coach. I'm not required to be that everyday parent anymore. So when you're looking at everybody else, look at your current situation. I couldn't talk about a vacation lifestyle in 2008. I couldn't talk about a vacation lifestyle even when I worked at the VA. I couldn't talk about a vacation lifestyle even a few years ago when I still was a mom with a daughter who lived with me every day that required my attention. So embrace where you're at. make the best of where you're at and get clear on where you desire to go and what are those steps now to get to what your next is. And the social work movement is so much bigger than me. So much. I was actually on vacation. A lot of stuff happens when I'm on vacation. I was on vacation in Miami. And I had the vision for the social work incubator, like I mentioned. But with that vision, I felt like I was called to change the global narrative of the social work profession. And that was maybe last year. And the irony about it was, like, I talked about it and I did some different social media posts on Facebook and on LinkedIn about it. And people were just like, girl, changing the narrative. And then I would work on it a little bit and then I would put it down. And then I would work on it a little bit more, then I would put it down because I didn't see how I can move forward with it, or how it was making any traction, or how I was getting anything done. But because it's something that I'm called to do, and I know that it's something that's so much bigger than it's so much bigger than Lequita Brooks, that it just kept coming back to me. And you might be in that same situation where things just keep coming back to you over and over and over again. And no matter how much you put it down, how much you put it to the side, how much you put it, on the back burner, it keeps coming back up. And changing the global narrative of the social work profession was something that just kept coming back up. So finally, I decided, I want to pick this up. And then I started the social work movement, because when I started the social work movement, it was literally intended for me to just highlight other social workers. I wasn't even going to interview. I wasn't even going to do an interview. And with one of my interviews, the social work auntie, she said, Lequita, you're talking about interviewing everybody else. We need to hear your story. You need to interview. So I said, okay. So here I am doing my interview today. And I officially started the social work movement. And it's a docuseries that's part of Social Impact Sundays at 6. Because I didn't want to just limit it to social work, but social work is my heart. Social work is my soul. Like, social work is my baby. So as I've launched Social Impact Sundays at 6, the first thing I've started doing was the social work movement. And I thought, honestly, it was simply going to be like a limited docuseries, because I didn't know, like, if I was going to get anyone to buy into the vision. And within a matter of weeks, I had over 35 people who were like ready to interview. So instead of it being a limited docuseries, it's going to be much longer than that. But it's a docuseries to highlight all the amazing things that social workers are doing out here in this world, so we can just eliminate and dismantle this whole bitter, broke, and burnout narrative for social work. We are dismantling that social workers are martyrs to just help people. We're getting rid of that. We're getting rid of social workers don't make money. We're getting rid of all social workers do child welfare. We're getting rid of all of those outdated narratives, because social workers like me, we are out here living our best lives. We are out here having even more social impact, money and time for self-care, family, philanthropy, travel, doing all the things, living life on our own terms, leveraging our social work degrees. So here are 5 ways to support the social work movement. Number 1, shop our merchandise. We have different paraphernalia for the social work movement. Right now, we have some t-shirts and a few other things. Number 2, you can schedule your interview if you are a social worker and you want to join this movement to share your story. Where are you at today? And how did you actually get there to inspire the next social worker? Number 3, book your next steps consultation with me. Because in this world, there are a lot of people who have big visions, big goals, big dreams, just like me. But one of the things that sometimes you lack is that you see where you're going, right? You know your future, you know your present, but you're having a tough time figuring out what is my next 3 steps, or what's my next 5 steps. And I can support you with that. So that's number 3, book your next steps consultation. Number 4, inquire for speaking and brand deals. I am a social impact speaker. So I talk about maximizing your impact, maximizing, your income, just basically taking those things that you know that you're called to do, you're meant to do, those social causes, the things that you know that are bigger than you that keep tugging at you. Just like me changing the global narrative of the social profession, it just kept tugging at me. So here we are today. And number 5, like, share, and subscribe at Lequita Brooks on YouTube. So at YouTube, you will see the playlist for the social work movement. You'll also see a playlist for Social Impact Sundays and all the things. And the way that you can access all of these links is at socialworkmovement.com. You could go to socialworkmovement.com in order to support the social work movement. I am Lequita Brooks, your social impact speaker and strategist, and the revolutionary that started the social work movement, which is a docuseries that's part of Social Impact Sundays at 6. Until next time, always remember, you can have even more social impact, money, and time for self-care, family, philanthropy, and travel when you have a strategy, you have a vision, you map it out, and you execute. I thank you all so much for tuning in, and I appreciate you all. Have an amazing day.